want to look in your eyes and tell you, you can't beat me. You can't.
Now we have official paperwork on G Herbo. Everybody was talking about G Herbo going to jail, but now before he actually has to go to see how long he gets sentenced for his federal case for the scamming and things like that, we find out now that he wasn't making any money on his music. As of today, he's still not making money from his music. Now, according to the paperwork, he's suing his ex-business manager. His business manager was also the head of his label. So not only did he have a business manager that was all over his finances, that same business owner ran the record label that G Herbo was signed to. And G Herbo only made $15,000 to sign to this label, and he hasn't made any money. He's owed a lot of money. And the only way that G Herbo was getting his money throughout those years, since he was 17 signed, he would have to go to this business manager and get pennies on a dollar. He wasn't getting any money. In this paperwork, it shows how bad G Herbo was done. He had to complete 5 albums for the contract. And this particular contract, they got to pick what was labeled as an album or mixtape. So according to the agreement, or according to the label that he signed to, he only released 1 album since he started making music. So this paperwork breaks everything down, so I think you guys would enjoy it. The complaint says plaintiff Herbert Randall Wright III, also known as G Herbo, by and through his undersigned counsel, this complaint against defendants Machine Entertainment Group LLC and Joseph Boeing and collectively defendants, alleges based on information and belief as to others and upon knowledge to himself as follows. Plaintiff Wright is a musician, performer, and recording artist and songwriter in the rap hip-hop genre, professionally known as G Herbo. Defendant Machine is an Illinois limited liability company with its principal place of business in Illinois. Defendant Boeing is a resident of the state of Illinois. Boeing is the manager and the owner of the Machine. Boeing is responsible for the operation of and the business affairs of Machine. The preliminary statement. Wright is a successful musician in the hip-hop rap genre, performing under the name G Herbo. Wright began his musical career in Chicago, Illinois, before he turned into the majority age of 18. Boeing is a sophisticated businessman in the music industry who owns and controls Machine. Boeing sometimes uses the professional name JB. Beginning when Wright was a minor, defendants took advantage of Wright's lack of knowledge regarding the music business to deprive him of millions of dollars of income, as well as his enormously valuable intellectual property and other rights. Specifically, Boeing's company Machine entered into an unfair and one-sided deal with Wright to obtain his copyright and other valuable rights. At the same time, Boeing served as Wright's business manager. A business manager is a trusted person who is responsible for protecting his or her client's financial interests. Boeing ensured that Wright would have no access to the millions of dollars that Wright had rightfully earned, and instead Wright would have to depend upon Boeing to make basic purchases for him. Through his scheme, Boeing planned to keep Wright forever indebted to the defendants and unable to terminate the contract, which gave Wright's valuable copyrights and other rights to defendants. Additionally, as a business manager, he was required to ensure that his or her clients were treated fairly by their record label. Here, Boeing was conflicted from fulfilling those requirements because Boeing owns Wright's record label. Moreover, Boeing did not even attempt to deal fairly with Wright, but instead took financial advantage of him in every manner imaginable. Boeing entered into and preceded his relationship with Wright. Boeing violated his position of trust and confidence with Wright by entering self-interest transactions to the detriment of Wright without providing Wright with full and proper disclosure. Wright and defendants entered a mutual release agreement during a meeting at a recording studio on August 25th, 2023, the release agreement. Now, this release agreement rendered earlier agreements between the parties null and void, and it returned to Wright the copyrights and other rights which Wright had previously conveyed to the defendants. Soon after signing the release agreement, however, defendants hatched a scheme to try to get out the release agreement. They concocted an outrageously false and baseless story that Boeing purposely was threatened with and other order to have him to sign the release agreement, and Bolden was physically prevented from leaving the recording studio until he signed the release agreement. Defendants defamed Wright by publishing these false accusations to at least one influential individual in the music industry. Bowen also threatened to run to criminal authorities with these false claims unless Wright agreed to disavow the release agreement. G. Herbo did not give in to these wrongful tactics. Wright now seeks through claims in this complaint to enforce the release agreement, to reclaim his intellectual property, to protect his copyrights from infringement of defendants, and to obtain compensation for the self-dealing transactions entered into this agreement. Defendants convinced Wright to enter into an exclusive recording agreement in exchange for a paltry advance of $15,000. Defendants first convinced Wright to sign an exclusive recording agreement with the machine when Wright was a minor. Defendants, however, were concerned that the minor agreement could be found by court to be invalid on the basis that Wright was under 18 years old when he signed it. Therefore, shortly after Wright turned 18, defendants successfully compelled Wright to sign a new exclusive recording agreement with the machine that was created on the date October 17th, 2013. The recording agreement conveyed to Machine, among other valuable rights, the exclusive copyrights and Wright's musical recordings during the term thereof. Shockingly, the first upfront payment, which Wright will receive in exchange for granting these valuable rights, to a paltry payment of $15,000, which payment will be recoupable. Recoupable means repaid for future monies otherwise payable to Wright under the recording agreement. The recording agreement provided for a term of 4 albums. The recording agreement provided that Machine will license Wright's musical recordings to a third-party distributor, which would in turn pay royalties to the Machine. The Machine also agreed in the recording agreement to pay Wright a 60% royalty of the Machine's net royalty receipts derived from his uses of Machine's merchandising rights. It was only in the past few weeks that the defendant, for the very first time, provided any financial recordings whatsoever to Wright. The defendants blatantly reported bad asserts that Wright purposely owes Machine a recoupable balance of $8.4 million. In addition to controlling the copyrights and other valuable rights in Wright's entertainment career through the recording agreement, Bowen also assumed the separate role of Wright's business manager for the vast majority of the past 10 years. It was a grievous conflict of interest for Bowen to serve as Wright's business manager while at the same time through Machine control Wright's recording rights and other rights. At all relevant times, Bowen understood the nature of his conflict of interest but never explained it to G. Herbo. Because Wright money was controlled by the defendants, Wright was forced to ask Bowen to make purchases on his behalf, including for vehicles, Wright's rent, and his mother's rent. Although Bowen often would proceed to make the requested purchases for Wright, Bowen wrongfully would categorize these purchases as advances that were made by the Machine itself on the behalf of Bowen, so that they would have to be recouped, pretty much being paid out of royalties that were otherwise payable to the Machine to Bowen. These self-dealing transactions were a grievous breach of Bowen's agreement with Wright. The second amendment that they made on the recording agreement was far worse for Wright. Now, they said the second amendment also included a provision stating that so-called mixtapes featuring G. Herbo would not qualify as albums for purposes of fulfilling the 5-album term of the second amendment to the recording contract. Now, Bowen convinced Wright to meet him at a Chase Bank branch to execute the second agreement. Given that Bowen had been rightfully withholding Wright's funds, Bowen knew that Wright was in a dire financial straits, and therefore Bowen enticed Wright with a wad of cash to pressure him to sign that second amendment. Bowen's tactic was successful, and Wright took the money and signed the second amendment. Effective February 23rd of 2021, Wright and the Machine signed a third amendment for the recording contract. The third amendment reduced the terms of the recording agreement to 4 albums, again not including mixtapes. Bowen has bragged that he already earned more than $20 million from G. Herbo. Specifically, Bowen falsely claimed to the representatives of Wright that he purposely was threatened with and to signing the release agreement. He also was prevented from physically leaving the studio until he signed that release agreement. Outrageously, defendants had attempted to extort Wright into changing that agreement. Defendants had threatened to disclose these false accusations and therefore cause harm to Wright in unrelated criminal proceedings involving Wright unless Wright would go back on that agreement. As defendant's attorney brazenly stated, Wright's counsel dated on October 18, 2023, if Bowen were to file a police report, it would be devastating to Mr. Wright's pending criminal action. Following the entry release of the release agreement, Wright, through his counsel, instructed Machine and Bowen to cease and desist all of reproduction, distribution, and profit from his musical recordings. Nevertheless, Machine and Bowen continued to produce and distribute Wright's musical recordings, including but not limited to those on Welcome to Fazoland. Machine and Bowen continue wrongfully to collect royalty accountants and payments from them. As a result of the Machine's material breaches, Wright has been damaged in an amount of determined at trial, but no less than $20 million. G Herbo is demanding a trial by jury for all of the claims so triable. Respectfully submitted, October 25th of 2023. Now, G Herbo talked about this on his Instagram, and this is why it makes sense. Now, I want you to hear it from the horse's mouth. Check it out.
So everybody that know me, y'all know I'm independent. I'm signed to Machine. I've been signed to Machine since I was 16 years old, so I was a minor. My parents had to sign me over, you know what I'm saying? We've been family, independent, made history. Boom. So, 16, first and foremost, I signed my publishing away for perpetually for 15 grand. I never had a direct deal with the label. It's always been with him, with Machine. So over the years, when we started generating money, probably this was we was on the Sony system, like 19. Pulled me to the side, like, bro, let me run your business for you. I wasn't really business savvy. And this is somebody I trust with my life, like a brother, like a father figure. Let me run your business for you, bro. All right. So from then on, he's running my business, paying my bills, making sure everything paid, staff, everything all ran through him. I really was only playing on my ancillary bread, you feel me? Just having motion on my ancillary, not the residual. I always control the residual. Long story short, 12 years later, I've been hearing rumors that I owed his money, right? That I owe him money. So, and I'm not just sweeping it under the rug. So, long story short, I go get up with him. I'm like, hey, bro, what's up with these numbers? Look at the numbers, one right. And started like just thinking. So, recently, we had a meeting. Me, him, Mick, my old manager. Big Bro was in the room. Coffee was in the room. Big Bro was in the room. His brother was in the room, OB. And my brother Mansky was in the room. So we just having a conversation amongst us because I wanted witnesses there. So I talked to him, looking in the eye, bro, this ain't right, you ain't right. You always control my business, right? You always control the money, right, boom. Go back in the room, his brother having a personal conversation. I said, brother, for me, you gotta sign this out of good faith. For me. And we had figured out through the lawyers, of course, you know, of course he did it, signed 3 copies. Boom, shake hands after everything, leave. So now, after we finna do the audits and everything, because he know he did bad. It's a long video, it's going to almost 4 minutes, I'm about to sum it up. So, I've been getting these calls from like my criminal attorney in Boston. My criminal lawyer been calling me, which he paid. I paid almost a million on this case. He paid because he paid my bills. My lawyer called me because they know each other. Like, man, could you call him? He was using like a tactic with Esther. He's saying I made him sign his contract under duress, and he's trying to like get me arrested for it. And I'm like, he got me blocked. My lawyer like, can you call him? I try to call him on through. I'm like, can you call him? Like, you know what I'm saying? Got me blocked. But he's using these tactics, these manipulative tactics to take advantage. So I'm just coming here to say, like, I just want to look in your eyes and tell you, you can't beat me. You can't.
Now let's talk about this in the comments. Like I said, G Herbo is going to be sentenced November 7th. It sucks that he's not getting his money, because who knows, maybe he could have actually got better counsel. I'm not saying he didn't have good counsel, but if he would have had that $20 million, that $20 to $40 million that he's requesting, he might just get off, because he's looking at some time in a federal prison for this actual scam case. So let me know how you feel about this in the comments. This is Black and White. $15,000, and he was only getting 60% of the royalties on paper, but they were saying he wasn't getting that at all. So let me know how you feel about this in the comments, man. This is very shocking that he wasn't getting any money. I can see why he was scamming. I hate to say it like that, but it is what it is.